It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
It is Friday on the Sports Blitz. Thank you for joining us today in the Cogswell Motors studios. We've got Weldon Braxton and Maddie Lassiter, and I'm Mark Freeman here to give you the latest in local, state, and national sports. Weldon, man, we've got some freedom today. There's some topics that we want to talk about, but there's some stuff we get to expound a little bit more than we normally do today.
Yeah. And one thing I'm looking at, Mark, among many, Arkansas Razorback football. I feel like it's been a good spring in terms of what's been going on with the football program, but I think it's been different too. And tell me if you agree. Than the last few springs. You had sort of the end of the Petrino era, where the last couple of years you went in with high expectations, and then even the horrible John L. year, you didn't know it was going to be horrible at the time. So that was an exciting spring, even though there was a lot going on with people crashing motorcycles. But and then last year with Bielema, you knew Arkansas wasn't going to be an elite power or contender, but it was a new coach, it was a new philosophy. You had the excitement of newness. This year, I don't know if any of that shine is there. The team's not going to be very good. You expect to see some improvement, but for the most part, you know what to expect system-wise, player-wise. Yes, some people can surprise you, but for the most part, I feel like the shine of the last few springs isn't here. I think that's why a lot of people haven't talked Arkansas Razorback spring the way they have the last few years, but with practices starting to be opened up, a scrimmage coming up this weekend, maybe that'll change.
And, to that point, I think I'm kind of on the opposite thought here because, I don't expect Arkansas to be that good. Nobody expects Arkansas to be that good, so I'm a little bit more intrigued this year than I have been because it's like, you can come up and catch some folks by surprise, and if Arkansas beats some teams, that they're not supposed to beat, it'll catch a lot of people by surprise. But I'm just praying to my sweet Jesus for a 500. 6-6 season, 500.
Yeah.
I'll be very happy with that. That would mean a bowl berth possibility, or at least eligibility. And then, reading some of the spring practice reports, they're not all that valuable because by the time fall rolls around, you're going to have incoming freshmen come in who will challenge, and folks will be red-shirted, and you're really just finding out who you've got right now if you're Brett Bielema, and you're not really putting them in position, but. I've been interested to hear some stuff. I was reading Ched Carpenter, the ugly uncle from Northwest Arkansas, friend of the show, who he did a practice report, and he was talking about how he thought Alex Collins looked like he was out of shape. He looked like he was fat.
Oh, really?
He said that there's a reason he's in the doghouse, and it's because he's fat. And I was like, whoa. So that was a little bit disheartening to hear.
Yeah. You sure wasn't like that Eddie Lacy picture where it was just his jersey flying out. you remember that? We thought, God, my goodness, Eddie Lacy is way out of shape, but it was just a weird picture.
Yeah, I think it probably was, to be honest with you. I'll see if I can pull it up and get it to Maddie right here, and he can show it. But somebody had a picture of all the running backs, and I was just like, what? Well, is it that? And I don't know. He does
Collins.
It does look like he's thicker, but I don't know. The Eddie Lacy thing is probably a really good analogy for it.
Yeah, because Eddie Lacy, he did work this year as a rookie. But, the thing with Collins, and I know there's been a lot of talk with him and the rumors of him transferring and all of that, and which, by the way, completely unfounded. As far as I know, unless you know some stories that I know.
I haven't heard anything either.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything substantial. But I think Coach Bielema, you go back to the time when Collins was removed from the weight program for a week or so. It's about falling in line, and I really respect and appreciate Coach Bielema's perspective because it's really easy to compromise what you believe in when you get a five-star player, especially if you're like an Arkansas who traditionally you don't get a lot of five stars, or a Coach Bielema who's had success but he hasn't done it with a ton of five-star players. It would seem to reason that if you did come across a guy, you may be more willing to bend yourself and compromise what you do, but he's clearly established that's not the case. So Alex Collins, it's up to him to fall in line, and that's a tough position because, you could have somebody threaten, hey, I'm a 1,000-yard freshman rusher. I can leave. I will up and leave, and that'd be a big blow to your football team. And I think if you're a coach, it's tough, but you have to say, well, so be it. This is how we're going to do things here, and I respect that.
Yeah, it's definitely something you've got to be careful about. You can't just have somebody running, holding the program hostage, but also at the same time, you got to think about these are 18, 19-year-old. Alex Collins, he can't be older than 19 years old.
Right.
So he's a kid. And there's really going to have to be some parenting done almost for Alex Collins. And you see, and I don't know his family, I don't know his parents, but you see sort of what he grew up in when his mom was stealing his LOI and taking off with it. He obviously wasn't raised the way some of us were raised. Let's just put it that way. So we've got Jason on the line. Jason, what's going on, man?
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Doing good. Just talking little hogs.
Got you early today, huh, Jason?
Yeah, man. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get in later in the show, so I thought I'd call in now. And y'all are talking spring football, so of course I had to chime in on that.
Yeah.
What's up? I was talking about Alex Collins. Everybody, I don't know where the rumor got started about. There was rumors of Jonathan Williams and Alex Collins. They weren't getting along, and there's rumors of him transferring, and he's in the doghouse and he's out of shape and all this stuff. Now, I watched highlights from the practice yesterday. Trey Biddy had put some up on Hog Sports, and I mean, he caught I think it was the longest play. They kind of had a little, not really a full scrimmage, but just kind of a pass skeleton stuff going on yesterday with the D-backs, and kind of like a little 7-on-7, I guess. And Alex Collins caught a 7-yard touchdown pass that was, he probably caught it after about 20 yards and then just took it to the house. And I mean, you could definitely tell that he might be out of shape just a little bit, but nobody on the team was going to catch him. And that was pretty much going against, some of the better DBs. It wasn't like the third or fourth string DBs. So, I mean, he looks to me like he's bigger, and I wouldn't say bigger as in fat. I would say bigger as in he's bulked up a little bit. I think he's gained, I think they said 12 pounds since last off season. So, I mean, I think he looks just as good as he did last year.
Well, we're looking at the picture right now, Weldon and I, and Maddie's putting it up. And I think what Ched saw, I don't know if he's wearing some sort of, like a flak jacket type thing. I don't know why he would, but it is full padded practice. So it's up right now. There, Alex Collins, number 3 in the middle. But his jersey's kind of cut up or tucked up underneath his shoulder pads, and you can see the little indentation where his belly button is. People think he's fat. He does look thicker in the arms for sure. And if he hasn't lost any speed, another year in the weight room and another year under Ben Herbert, I would hope he would understand how to put the weight on the guys the right way and not go Decker on him and put Cedric Cobb's up at 230 when he should have been 210.
Yeah, Ben Herbert, that's not him. He's the man.
So I'm thinking, Jason, that you're probably right, and the fact that the proof is in the pudding, and if he's taking a 70-yard wheel route to the house, he's doing something right.
Yeah, and another thing on Collins is he might be in at the doghouse a little bit, but I think it's he's right now he's listed as third team on the depth chart. Behind Jonathan Williams is 1, Corliss Marshall is 2, and then Collins is 3. I think it's more of a motivational thing for him. I think that's what Bielema is doing, is trying to create motivation for him to really get out there. And, they say Jonathan Williams is like one of the hardest working guys on the team, that he's there, 24/7. He's always looking at film. He's always in the weight room. He's always, reading the playbook or, whatever the case may be. And I think Bielema is just kind of trying to light a little fire in a Collins, saying, hey, man, we know that you're talented. You ran for over 1,000 yards last year, the most on the team. But we want you to get in there and bust your butt and really be the All-American back that we think that you could be.
Well, for Alex Collins, for me last year, I saw a guy who was this close to breaking the big one several times. He was this close to making that game-changing play, and it seems to me, now I don't know, obviously we're not there, we don't see how he works in practice and how he handles himself in the classroom and those types of things, but it seems like Brett Bielema and the staff is sort of pushing him to get that close, to get that extra little bit so that it can carry him, because talent-wise, Jonathan Williams is good, and I've liked Jonathan Williams before he even got on campus, because he was recruiting, he was going Rafe Peavy on it and just recruiting for Arkansas before he even got here. but I love the way Jonathan Williams plays. I love everything about him, but when you see a carry from Jonathan Williams and you see a carry from Alex Collins, there's just something different about Alex Collins. I think they're trying, like Jason said, to push him to get a little bit better every day, and I don't know, he may be kicking back a little bit.
Yeah, Jonathan Williams has really impressed me because he did the recruiting thing, which was great before, but I questioned him. You remember we were back on the radio at the other station. He said, this running back from Texas, we'll see how he pans out. He's done an outstanding job. He's been a hard worker. As far as Collins going, and this is something that I've seen and I've kind of dealt with, and part of my job as an offensive coordinator is you have to give your assistants a manual or a guide as far as how to do things. And one thing that I put in my manual was how to address certain players. You're going to come across, for the most part, two different players. Either players who don't understand how good they are, who constantly beat themselves up, and they just don't know how good they can be and how our approach should be to uplift them, even though we're coaching them as hard as everybody else. The other kind are the ones you have to cut down. Now, from my standpoint, at a junior college, most of the time you have people who think that, they were Division I type players and they're at a junior college for one reason or another. In this case, with a 5-star player, it's more along the lines of, yeah, you're a 5-star here. You're not at Alabama. You're among players who are primarily 2- and 3-star players. Just because you have more stars by your name when you came here doesn't mean that you're going to get to run the shop here. And so there's almost a stronger intent, and I'll admit this, to when you pick out those guys who do come in with a little bit more highly touted, a little bit more credit to their name. You kind of target those guys and make sure, look, we're going to cut you down to size, make sure you understand what's going on. We want to push you to be great, but we're going to cut you down and make sure you don't stay all up here. And I think that's what's going on.
Look at any non-professional coach is going to do that.
Yeah.
Nick Saban is hammering his running backs, and he's hammering his defensive backs, and he's telling everybody about how he doesn't know about such and such, and he doesn't know about this guy because he wants to. Now, when you get to be a professional, you don't have to use that kind of motivation. These are grown men, but like we were talking about, Alex Collins is a 19-year-old kid, and he may be he just may need the extra push. Jason, I don't know if you've heard anything about the rest of the practices, but I've heard that Brandon Allen has clearly been the one at quarterback. Which, no, I don't have any problems with Brandon Allen. I think he could be pretty good if he can stay healthy. He wasn't healthy at all last year, so I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. And then I've heard good things about the wide receivers. Heard Jared Cornelius played pretty well yesterday, Hunter Henry, and guys like that, Jeremy Sprinkle. I don't know what else you've heard about spring practice, but it sounds like the offense is doing pretty well.
Offensively, Brandon Allen, they're saying that he's head and shoulders above everybody. Saying on Brandon Allen, I'm a Brandon Allen fan. I think, after he took the dive into the end zone when he hurt his shoulder, I think that he wasn't healthy all year long. And the thing on Brandon Allen is, and this is my philosophy, if Bobby Petrino is the one that recruited him to Arkansas, if Bobby Petrino thinks he's going to be a good quarterback, then I have confidence in Brandon Allen that he's going to be a good quarterback, because I think Bobby Petrino is probably the best out of evaluating a quarterback of anybody I've ever seen in the country. I mean, he made Casey Dick look halfway decent. And if you can do that, I think I think that Brandon Allen's going to be good in time. Tight ends, of course, Hunter Henry's the guy there, and Jeremy Sprinkle. Those are the two main guys right now. We got Lawyer's out with an ACL tear, and so he's going to be out of practice. But I think he'll be coming back and helping this fall. But Jeremy Sprinkle, they're saying big things out of him, that he's really stepping up and catching everything thrown at him, that he's added some solid weight. He was pretty light last year, and I think he's up to about 245, 250 now, so that should help a lot there. And, talking about wide receivers, they're saying Demetrius Wilson is really looked good, as good as he was before he got hurt, before he tore his ACL last year, because he was listed as a starter last year. And yesterday during when they ran the skeleton that Keon Hatcher was a starter on one side and Demetrius Wilson was a starter on the other side. So I think both of them are going to be really good. And then Jared Cornelius and Cody Hollister, both of them, they say, have probably got the best hands on the team. And, Cody Hollister's 6'4" guy, and I think he's going to be able to really help out in possession receiver, being a guy that, is coming across the middle and going up against the DBs. I think he's going to really help them out, Arkansas, that way. And Now, another thing on Brandon Allen is, the wide receivers last year were absolutely horrible. And I think this year with healthy Demetrius Swift and with Keon Hatcher, DeArthur Cowan, JoJo Robinson when he gets here, Jared Cornelius, Cody Hollister, Hunter Henry, and Jeremy Sprinkle, I think that's 7 or 8 guys that I think have the potential to be really good at catching the ball, and we didn't have that last year. So I think the offense is definitely going to be improved. Do I think they're going to be the top offense in the SEC? No, I don't think that, but I think they're really going to be able to prove that they're going to be able to not just run the ball consistently like we did last year, but I also think that the passing game is definitely going to develop more, and I think we can move the ball through the air too.
Well, everything about that sounds good to me offensively, but Weldon, one thing that always scares me when you hear about the offense doing this and the offense doing that in spring scrimmages or in any intra-squad scrimmage is that the defense has to allow that. And I've heard good things about the pass breakups from the corners and things like that. Hadn't heard a word about any safeties, hadn't heard a word about any linebackers. Yeah. And obviously it's not full speed, so you're not going to hear a whole lot about the defensive line getting sacks and things like that when their sack is this. You just touch somebody. But, I always worry about the defense. And for the last several years, so far I can't even remember a year that I can point out that was a great year. The defense is an issue, and I worry about it.
Yeah, and I think in the springtime, you look at it from the perspective of a head coach. People ask head coaches all the time, in your spring game or your scrimmages, who are you cheering for? That 60-yard pass is great for your offense, but it happened against your defense. Yep. And the same thing with vice versa as far as sacks and turnovers. I think it's a great opportunity to coach both sides of the ball because you don't really get to do that in any other setting. If you're going up against another team, you're coaching your team only. You're only coaching your offense when they're on the field or your defense. I think during a spring period, what you do is you get on every single play that happens. You get on whoever was at fault. So a 1-yard run, instead of patting the defense on the back, you get on the offense. Interception happens, you don't pat the defense on the back, you get on the offense. So it just gives you a chance to be, some people call it negative Nancy. You get to be negative Nancy every single play. That's how you look at it, as a head coach. But for me, guys, what I'm really looking for, not only this fall or this year, but really for the next couple of years, and we won't find this out in the spring, is I still want to know about when it's time, when it's in the heat of battle, the chemistry between the head coach and the offensive coordinator, because I believe Brett Bielema does want to be balanced to a degree and run a pro style, and Jim Chaney does have pro style tendencies, but at the same time, when the running game is showing a hint of not working, Jim Chaney likes to air that thing out. He'll throw it 15 times in a row if he's getting stuffed on a few carries, and he'll just say, forget the running game. In the heat of battle, I still want to see if this relationship is going to work long term. I'm not saying it's not, but it's something I have my eye on.
Now, Jason, you'll have to fill us in if you've paid a little more attention to the spring practices than we have. You heard anything good about the defense aside from just some pass breakups from the cornerbacks?
Man, just, the linebackers is really what worries me. I think, you've got Marshall Spate, you've got Brooks Ellis, and you've got Otha Peters, who's really coming on. They said that he's actually healthy now, that the first time he's actually been healthy since he's been on campus. And I think he's got as much athleticism as any linebacker we have there, and I think he's really going to come on. But, you got 3 or 4 linebackers there that are, if one of them goes down, I think it's going to hurt us bad. Because the linebackers we got coming in, 2 of them played safety, and 1 was a defensive end. So I really don't expect very much, for them to come in and contribute. But defensive back-wise, of course, they're saying all the right things like you're saying, that the defense is really playing a lot better. And, there is more bodies there, and people's getting bigger. And, there a couple guys redshirted like DeAndre Coley. They've been raving about him since he's been on campus. But, of course, he redshirted last year, which I think he'll help out a lot. But safety-wise, Rohan Gaines and Alan Turner, they're probably going to be the starters. They was the starters pretty much last year, besides Eric Bennett when he came in. They'd run a lot of nickel. So I think Gaines and Turner will be good. Turner was good last year. He led the team in tackles, and he was a solid player. He's always around the ball. He might not be the fastest or most athletic, but he can always find the ball to make the tackle, and I think he's going to keep on coming. And cornerback-wise, man, we've got, 4, 5, 6 bodies there, so surely 2 of them can step up, 2 or 3 can step up and really be contributors this year. because last year, we would just get killed, on offensive passing against our defense. But I think with the head coaches or the assistant coaches we're bringing in, I think we're going to see a lot of different blitz packaging, like zone blitzing. I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see more press man coverage. I think it's just going to be I think the defense is going to be improved, but I don't know how much more improved, because I just don't know if we've still got enough talent there to be real successful in the SEC.
All right, Jason. Well, you're going to have to continue to follow this spring practice, because you're doing a little better job of it than we are as far as paying attention to all this stuff going on in spring practice. And I'm gonna continue to monitor the Alex Collins situation, because I want to see him jump up a level this year, and I think he can do that. Jason, you got anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
I'm going to mention the offensive line real quick.
Okay.
Offensive line-wise, I think we're going to be really good. I think that's going to be the strength of our team. I think last year, we were good. We were able to run the ball, but now, they're moving guys around. Skippers went from guard to tackle, which, he's a natural tackle of his size. And the way he's able to flex and move and bend, I think it's really going to be good for him to be that left tackle. And I think on the right side, you got Wade Cook at right tackle, and then Denver Kirkland at right guard. I think we're going to be able to just pound people on that side. I think that's going to be our best side to run behind is going to be on that right side. And then at center, Luke Charpentier has really got that position on lockdown. I think he's really going to be able to step up. When Jonathan Leeds graduated, everybody was saying who's going to be the center, who's going to be able to step up, and of course Travis Swanson stepped up and was the starter for 3 years. So I think he's going to be solid there. Luke Charpentier at center, and then at guard, a name that it's kind of when he first got on the campus, he was a big-time recruit, started some games as a true freshman, and then kind of fell to the wayside, which is Mitch Smothers. I think Mitch Smothers is really going to come on and contribute, maybe at left guard, or Cordell Boyd. I think he's got a chance to compete there. But you've also got to think about some of the players coming in, like the Sebastian Telefleur. He's going to be really good, I think, at guard position. So I think the strength of our team is going to be our offensive line, which is great because we can run the ball with the three great backs that we have, and then I think that's going to give Brandon Allen some protection to open up the passing game.
Yeah, and you look at the offensive line, Dan Skipper playing guard, that was an embarrassment. I mean, I'm not going to lie. That from day one, when you have a 6'10", how many 6'10" guards have you seen? I know you haven't seen many 6'10" tackles, but you're not going to find many guards over 6'5".
I mean, Kevin Durant's really tall, but he's kind of more of a forward.
That's about it. That's about it. And I mean, I get the numbers dictated. They wanted to get him on the field, and I guess they felt good about their tackles, but he had to kick outside. I'm really glad to see him, get more athletic, get stronger. The guards are really important in this offense because obviously you want to run the ball inside. You have to get initial movement, which starts with your interior lineman. And then in pass protection, too, you can't give up ground as an interior lineman. Now, tackles, you can be flexible, you can be athletic, you can kick, slide, and get depth. Can't do that as a center or a guard. You've got to be able to anchor. You've got to have a lower center of gravity. And so I'm really anxious to see what happens at guard. I heard Jim Chaney's comments. He feels good about what they have at tackle, still wanting to see what goes on. I think at left guard is where there's some questions. So, yeah, that's something we'll definitely keep our eye on.
That's some good stuff, man. Some good spring practice reporting right there. So, all right, Jason, we'll talk to you on Monday, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll probably call you Monday. One more quick thing. I'm going to do my Bass Rick Schaefer impersonation. The offense is looking great. We'll probably lead the nation in offense. The defense is spectacular. We're going to, have the number one defense in the country, and we'll probably be playing in the national championship game come next year.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, Rick.
We'll see how that works. Thanks, Jason. We'll talk to you again soon.
I appreciate it, guys.
Jason Kilburn, a little impromptu spring practice report. We'll get to the other stuff. We've got some local sports and some wire-related topics after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Today's CrossFit Russellville poll question deals with the NCAA tournament. This is the last weekend of the NCAA tournament. We've got Final Four action Saturday, championship game action Monday night. Looking forward to a good weekend of basketball. These best two games, I mean, technically the best three games of the entire basketball season, the Final Four matchups in the national championship game. We'll see if that turns out to be the case, but we've asked today, who's the X factor? Who is the one person? And, you know, you could be, I guess, a little obvious and say a guy like Shabazz Napier from UConn or Scotty Wilbekin from Florida, or you could go to Julius Randle or Kaminsky. You could do something like that, but we're trying to make you think a little deeper today, as you've got these two big games on Saturday. Tomorrow, you've got Florida and UConn, and Kentucky and Wisconsin. Well, I don't know who you've got, but these games, obviously, I think both are going to be close games, and there are people who I think can be difference makers. When I've always said, and I said this, I pretty much say this every show. If everything's equal, you take the best player. But there's sometimes when there's a really good play over here, a really good play over here, and there's somebody else who's going to have to make the difference. Who are those guys for you?
I think there are a few guys. I think you can really pick guys off each team. You look at the Wisconsin-Kentucky game, I think Kaminsky, he is going to have to play well. I think he's going to have to be able to knock down shots and keep those Kentucky bigs spread out, because if you let those big dudes just get down there and own the glass the way they did against Michigan, I mean, it's not just Julius Randle, it's Dakari Johnson, it's Marcus Lee, and I know Will Cauley's son is going to be out for this one, but still, really, really a lot going on as far as what Kentucky can do. I think Kaminsky's got to be able to hit shots. And then for Kentucky, it seems to me that they're at their best when they're hitting shots. That's why I'm looking at James Young and I'm looking at an Aaron Harrison. Those are the two shot makers primarily for Kentucky. If they're hitting, Wisconsin's in trouble. On the other side, I'm really looking more at UConn. I'm looking at DeAndre Daniels, because he's a guy who, in the two games in New York, he was huge. I mean, he was making turnaround hook shots, threes, inside, outside. He was, to me, the reason why they got over the top. Now, Napier got him there. His scoring and his length got him over the top. If he plays well, I think they can stay in the game. If not, I think Florida will beat them handily. So I'm looking at DeAndre Daniels. I'm going to go with James Young / Aaron Harrison and Frank Kaminsky as sort of my X factors to watch.
Who do you think's going to guard for Florida? Who do you think's going to guard Shabazz Napier?
They could go a few different directions. I mean, Frazier's a guy who's a good defender, but then, you want his legs because he's one of the best shooters in the country. Wilbekin, you don't want to get him in foul trouble, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. From what I've seen, Florida, when they faced a dynamic type point guard, usually they'll go ahead and give Wilbekin some time. If he picks up an early foul, they'll switch it, and then, they can go with Hill. They'll bring him in off the bench or do something like that. But I think you'll see a mix, some Wilbekin and maybe some Frazier.
I'm with you there. That's kind of why Frazier was my guy for Florida that I thought was going to be an X factor, because you've got the inside presence, you've got the outside presence with Wilbekin and Young inside. You've got so many different guys. I mean, Florida 10 deep of guys who are just solid. So every time I watch Frazier, I think about I think it was a Saturday morning I was watching them play, and they showed before the game how he shot or either shot or made 253s before the game, and he's just silky smooth. Well, and he's got that Rodney Clark, I'm going to shoot the ball a million times to where my rotation is perfect. My form is absolutely the same every time.
I thought that was you.
I just have to shoot it about 10 times.
Excuse me.
But he's the guy to me. I think Florida, if all things were equal, he could be a guy who can be an X factor. And then going over to Kentucky, Wisconsin, I'll pick a Kentucky player because, like I said, I expect Kentucky to win. Now, if Wisconsin wins, I'm sure there's going to be somebody that sticks out. But for Kentucky, you know what you're going to get from Julius Randle.
Right.
You expect for Andrew Harrison to be a big contributor. I'm with you on Aaron Harrison and Young to be X factors in this game. I like to see old lefty go hit about 6 or 7 threes because I love a left-handed shooter. There's nothing like a left-handed shooter. It just looks better, doesn't it? Doesn't it just look better than anybody else's shot? Y'all go ahead and be honest.
I don't even think you believe that. I think you just say.
Yeah. Well, I mean. Yeah, Matty prefers 6'4" fadeaway is what he prefers. All right. So anyway, I'm with you on the Kentucky and Florida X factors. I think that obviously both of those teams are my favorites to win. So Monday, man, it's gonna be a fun time talking. If it turns out the way we expected, and Florida and Kentucky are playing, man, that's gonna be a fun breakdown on Monday.
Now, if it's Wisconsin and UConn, then we won't even talk about it. It's funny. Matty's a tall guy. He likes to shoot fadeaways. I was looking at some 2015 mock draft projections.
Yeah.
And speaking of big man shooting fadeaways, I'm seeing Hunter Mickelson late second round.
You're lying.
I'm dead serious. Yeah. Now, obviously the projections for this year are way off. Now, you can imagine what next year's projections are. I saw one that had Bobby Portis not even in the draft, and another one that had him like the 12th overall pick. Saw one that had Michael Qualls going top of the second round to Orlando Magic, and another one didn't even have him in it. So you never know what it's going to do, but it's just strange. I mean, we haven't seen many Razorbacks in mock drafts. BJ was in a few late second round mocks, but for the most part, you don't see a lot of Hogs in recent years, even in a mock draft. So that kind of perked my ears up.
I would say too bad BJ Young was in so many mock drafts instead of the real.
Yeah.
He and Marshawn Powell kind of. Oh well.
Yeah.
What they're doing now.
Yeah, they're probably trying to play a little bit here and there, but it got me to thinking. Arkansas, Mark, when you're playing basketball in April, it's a big deal. Am I right? I mean, April. If you're playing basketball in April, you're doing something right.
Oh yeah.
Arkansas. Against teams playing in April, 4-1 with a plus 29 scoring margin against teams playing April basketball. That includes SMU and Minnesota, who played last night for the NIT title, Kentucky twice in the game against Florida. 4-1 plus 29 margin, Arkansas Razorbacks.
And should have beaten Florida.
Yeah.
So should have been undefeated. Yeah, I was watching last night a little bit of the Minnesota SMU game, just banging my head on the wall like, man, Arkansas beat both of these teams.
Yeah.
And here they are sitting at the house watching these two teams play in Madison Square Garden. Just the fact that those two teams got to Madison Square Garden was such a cool experience for those players. I'm sure it helps in recruiting. SMU getting their second ever McDonald's All-American second in 2 years
Yeah.
under Larry Brown, and Arkansas sitting at home. So it's frustrating.
And it's one of those things where it just got me to thinking, and I had this feeling anyway. I came to this conclusion already, but it sort of reaffirmed it. Arkansas's season, it wasn't about the good teams they didn't beat. It was just losing to bad teams. I think that's what cost them. Yeah, they could have beaten Florida. They could have won at Tennessee, which would have been, resume shots in the arm. I know there are big wins out there that they didn't get, but I felt like they won enough big games. It's just they lost too many bad games. That's really what it was about. It was about at A&M where you just flat out didn't show up. At Georgia, low scoring game, you had the lead, you lose that in overtime. I know at Missouri is a tough place to win, but you should have won at least one of those Missouri games, either at home or the last second shot. Just the bad losses. That's what I'm feeling bad about. But it's a good thing because it's not like you're saying, man, we can't even beat Florida. We can't even beat Kentucky. We got to get to where we can compete with those teams. You can right now. You just have to be consistent against those bad teams.
I was going to say, that's a good point. The fact that you competed so well against Florida, you beat Kentucky twice, you win the games against the teams that you know you have to start up here.
Yeah.
But where Arkansas struggled is you go to Texas A&M and you think, Arkansas is a better team than Texas A&M, but they just didn't show up on that night, and they got whipped in the second half of that game. Just got destroyed, and it was frustrating. But you look at the season, there weren't but just a few games, just 2 or 3 games where they just got annihilated. Every other game was down to the wire, and although there were some things that I felt like were left to be desired,
I agree.
About late game decisions, I was just excited to see good games. I was happy to see the Hogs basketball team competing down the stretch, and no matter who they played, it was a pretty good game most every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Which gets you to thinking about next year. If Arkansas, against some games against South Carolina, I'm thinking about if you don't go into a scoring drought, maybe you have better point guard play to attack. You win that game on a neutral floor. You had Tennessee down by 8 on Tennessee's home floor. Maybe a better point guard play would have helped you close that one against Florida. So it just really tells you how close Arkansas was, and then they're bringing in difference makers in the areas of need. That's what I'm really excited about. 2 point guards in Durham and Anton Beard that could put them over the top.
Got to hit a little break real quickly. We've got to look at some wire topics. Looks like the Tennessee Titans are going to cut Chris Johnson. Pete Carroll has reached an extension with the Seahawks. Danny Manning hired by Wake Forest. Plenty more where that came from right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the 4s.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
We mentioned before the break, man, I need to put some WD-40 on this sucker. You hear it? Can you hear it? Creepy. The Titans are going to cut Chris Johnson's going to save them $6 million in salary and Weldon. This is according to John Clayton. This is why the NFL's contracts sometimes, in giving into demands, kind of comes back to bite you, because Chris Johnson was making nothing, then he was making a little bit more, and then he was like, I've outperformed that even, so give me more money, and now they have to cut him.
It's like, like ransom. If you start giving in, it's like if somebody's blackmailing you. You start paying them a little bit, then what's to stop them from asking for more? And then why would you not give them more if you started giving them money in the first place? It's almost like Deshaun Jackson. I think that played into other the gang conversation. But I think the fact that he wanted more money even after he got a new deal. Chris Johnson, really disappointed. I mean, here's a guy who he got his money, and it's like he just shut down. Now, I get the Titan offensive line was not very good. I get it. But I also noticed a lot of times where he would not take his 4 or 5 yards. He was trying to get his 60-yard bombs. There were a lot of times where he just wasn't into it. And it's never a good thing when you see an athlete, or at least you perceive an athlete, to get his money and shut it down. And so I think when you look at viable candidates or viable options for Johnson moving forward, that's something you have to take into consideration. Obviously, it's not going to be a long-term deal. I would expect the guaranteed money to not be as plentiful as it could be. Do I think he has some miles left? Yes. But am I going to sign him to a lucrative 4 or 5 year deal and make him my featured back? I don't see how you can with any confidence. So I think he may get a 2, possibly a 3-year deal at the most, but probably more so 2 years. A little bit of guaranteed money. Let him come and show that he's still the guy he was a few years ago. Other than that, though, I can't see any more for CJ.
Chris Johnson's going to end up playing for the freaking Patriots or something. I hate when
everybody
that kind of
else
stuff happens. Yeah, like somebody that's like that scares me as a guy who you team him with the right quarterback or right line or right receivers, and Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Like, if he cared at all, he's going to catch 23 touchdown passes in a year from Tom Brady. It's just it's scary to me. Speaking of scary, a guy that the Eagles are now going to be shaking in their boots about. You mentioned Deshaun Jackson. We talked about how the Eagles, they may or may not have manufactured all that stuff about him being gang affiliations and things like that. Have you ever heard Deshaun Jackson speak a
little bit,
on the TV or whatever in an interview?
Yeah.
Did you see his press release?
No.
That he supposedly wrote. It looked like some Harvard graduate wrote this press release for him. I was just like, why do we have to do that? Like, put our names to stuff that is like, I am deeply saddened and I regret. Why don't you just talk like a human being?
Hey, you know what? He is a published author.
Yeah.
He has a children's book out.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So he goes to the Washington Redskins. I guess he's going to wear number 11. And he got what was the deal? Let me find the numbers of the deal. I think it was 3 years for $24 million.
24, yeah. I'm not sure how much
like
guaranteed.
12 to 16 of it guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal for him as far as he's concerned. He gets to stay inside the division, which I think is the ultimate slap in the face to him in a way. And he's going to the bank with $8 million a year, and he doesn't care. But if a team lets you walk so you can go to a team inside the division, they really don't care about you.
They didn't. Here's my takeaway from what we saw with the Redskins. The Redskins dynamic is really, it's gone from interesting to now borderline troubling, and here's why. I keep getting the feeling that the inmates are running the asylum in Washington. I keep getting the feeling that RG3, while yes, he's the quarterback, you want to make sure it's somebody who's going to click and vibe with him. But I feel like it's one of those things where RG3 goes to the GM and he's like, "Daddy, I want him. And the GM's like, "Well, sure, son, RG3, I'll get him for you." And then he just gets him on the team. I feel like RG3 is kind of like a de facto GM where if it's somebody out there or he wants something done, or if any of these guys want anything done, they can just have it happen. And I feel that's a very troubling sign moving forward. RG3 already has a stigma of being entitled and acting like he's above the team. Whether or not that's true is another thing, but that's already the stigma out there around him anyway. And the fact that he went out and visited with Deshaun and tried to recruit him and get him on the team, and then it just happened just like that. It's just a weird feeling going on in Washington, and I don't know if I like it long term.
No, I completely agree. What you're talking about with Washington, sort of what I felt like with the Eagles dream team. Remember all that talk about that, about how they put all these pieces together. They didn't put a team together. They just threw a bunch of good players, threw a bunch of money at a bunch of big name players. And it's like some people's fantasy teams that I know. They draft the biggest names. They don't care about a fit or value. They just who's the best name on this list. I'll take him. I heard of him. I think that might be what Washington. I know Washington's probably a little bit better run franchise than that, but I mean from the outside they signed Ryan Clark. Oh, we've heard of him. He played for the Steelers. He was really good.
How old is he?
Yeah, he's 77 years old. But I read a story yesterday about Pat Riley, and obviously I'm a Miami Heat guy with LeBron James, but the way he in 2006 started planning for the 2010 season he had a plan, and the plan was to do this, put yourself in situations to where you can end up with this, and it doesn't seem like a lot of teams in the NFL are doing that. Now, there are some teams, like I like the way New England runs their franchise in that way. I like the way the Colts set themselves up for the future. I like the way the Broncos have been able to build around Peyton Manning and do all these things to get where they are. But teams like the Redskins and Eagles are kind of and the Cowboys are sort of on the other end of that spectrum.
Yeah, it is. And we were talking about Chris Johnson, who obviously now former Tennessee Titan running back. I'm looking at the Titans roster because I want to see who else they have on the depth chart. Sean Green, Jackie Battle. I would venture to say they're going to go draft a running back if that's what you have right now. But I'm looking, obviously we know former Razorback Tyler Wilson is now with the Tennessee Titans. If you didn't know, now you know. He's a Tennessee Titan. But what's very sad, and it's kind of funny at the same time, I'm looking at the Titans depth chart on ESPN, the Titans fan page. Jake Locker's the starter. They have nobody as the second string quarterback, and Tyler Wilson is the third string quarterback. I mean, that's just cold. You've got Jake Locker at 1, nobody at 2, Tyler Wilson third string. I mean, that is cold, man.
Tyler Wilson's in no situation to say anything about it either. He'd be packing up the U-Haul again, and that's the least of crap. If you can't make it with the Oakland Raiders, you ought to know you can't say anything. If you're Tyler Wilson, he's just got to sit there and say thank you for the check.
Well, they could at least put him second string. Like if you don't have anybody else on the team, but you still refuse to put him at second string.
That's rough, man. It's like we're going to get somebody better than him.
We don't know who it is yet.
But he's got to be better than him.
And
that ain't right.
And he's going to be working with Ken Wisenhunt. Ken Wisenhunt's a really good quarterback coach. Remember, Phillip Rivers' career was pretty much left for dead. He had been nowhere the last 3 years. Wisenhunt gets in to San Diego and as the offensive coordinator, help revive his career. If Tyler can make it, I think we'll see something. I don't know if I can't say he'll be the starter or anything, but if he can develop, I think Wisenhunt's a good coach to do it under.
Well, let's hit our final break real quickly so we don't go too far before we get into this. I want to talk a little bit about Durant and MVP in the NBA, and then also a couple of other topics that I think will deserve a little bit of time in our final segment. We'll be back right after this.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KARK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
The Oklahoma City Thunder ended San Antonio Spurs' 19-game winning streak last night. 4-0 now. The Oklahoma City Thunder are against the San Antonio Spurs. Leads me to the point that I wanted to make today. We've talked about this for, off and on for a couple months now. LeBron James, best player in the world in the NBA, in basketball, and Kevin Durant, number 2. But this year is Kevin Durant's year to win the MVP. I think this is the second or third year in a row that I've come in and said, it's the second year in a row. This is the second year in a row I've come in and said, Kevin Durant's probably going to win the MVP this year. I don't think he's a better player than LeBron James, but I have to give credit where credit is due. All of his numbers look better. He's had to do it without Russell Westbrook for long stretches of the season, and Kevin Durant is your MVP this year.
I feel like, listening to you, I feel like, it's the presidential election and, the loser is giving his concession speech. I feel like that's you. I feel like you're up there, you're congratulating Kevin Durant, giving him his props. You're not really putting a whole lot of juice behind it, but you're just acknowledging it. I feel like
he's been good. There's no, I know what you're saying because I'm a LeBron guy, so I want him to. No, I completely understand where you're coming from with that. But Kevin Durant has earned this MVP.
He has earned it. And let me just say this about Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City, they're where they need to be. They're back to where they need to be. When Westbrook went down, there were questions, but Ibaka has played well for most part this year, and I think they have to be the favorite to win the Western Conference. I mean, San Antonio, to me, they're the next best team. I think San Antonio can slice and dice anybody else out west. You can give me Houston. You can give me Portland. You can give me the Clippers. You can give me all these other teams. I'm taking San Antonio over them, but when it comes to Oklahoma City, it's just too tough because their defense and their length, Westbrook locking up Tony Parker, the way they can rotate on pick and roll and all the things San Antonio wants to do, it's just too much. When San Antonio, here's the thing with them, they like to take threes. When you miss them, you're just fueling transition. So, to me, Oklahoma City, Mark, they're on point to win the West. If they get to San Antonio, I think they're going to do it. The only chance of Oklahoma City losing, in my opinion, before is if they run into somebody other than San Antonio. Like, I think they would beat the Clippers, but the Clippers have played them pretty well. But if it's Spurs, Thunder, I'm Thunder all the way in the Western Conference.
I saw a couple of comments this morning. I didn't get to watch First Take this morning, which is where I get a lot of my fuel sometimes. Just to, something that makes me mad is just watching those dudes sometimes, some of the stuff that they come up with. But and Skip Bayless, what a joke, the stuff that he says. He's from Oklahoma City. He's trying to piss off people in Oklahoma City by saying stuff about his Spurs and how Oklahoma City somehow just beats them every time they. Well, there's a reason. It's because San Antonio is good. You said they slice and dice, folks. Man, they can't quite do it to Oklahoma City when they sit down and play that. Well, I called it high school defense this morning, and that was a term of endearment because you remember in high school when you had to guard and you're sitting your butt down. In college, it's sort of the same way, and a lot of well, it's changed a little bit with the one and dones and all that. You don't have such great guard, such great defensive play. But the San Antonio Spurs are a team that they pass the ball around. They play a beautiful style of basketball, almost a European style of basketball. And when they play Oklahoma City, they've got out-athleted pretty much everywhere. Tim Duncan 10 years ago, he would mess up every single one of those Oklahoma City inside players. Serge Ibaka, as good as he is, I mean, Tim Duncan would have made him look foolish in his prime. Tony Parker, he's still really good, but he's not going to be able to handle Russell Westbrook, and there's going to be, if Tony Parker's not the one to make the difference for San Antonio, they're in trouble. Kawhi Leonard, he's really good, but he just can't really bother Kevin Durant, who's 6'10" and can shoot over pretty much anybody at any time. And Russell Westbrook, just good Lord, the way he can just do basically inhuman things. He's just, God bless, the dude can fly. That Oklahoma City team is just a mismatch for San Antonio. That's just all there is to it. They're a mismatch. So I'm with you. If Oklahoma City and San Antonio match up, the advantage is huge for Oklahoma City, but and I'm looking at it from a Miami perspective.
Well, let's let me ask you that. Who would you want to see, Oklahoma City or San Antonio?
I would rather see Oklahoma City than San Antonio if I'm Miami. And that was the point that I'm getting to on that is that, Oklahoma City, as great as they are athletically, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade are on the other side.
That's right.
And I take LeBron James, the end, and Dwayne Wade sitting out 25 games to rest those knees, and he'll be ready to go. He's really, honestly, Dwayne Wade is sitting all these games for 14 games. He's sitting out for the Indiana Pacers, and he's sitting out for the NBA Finals. Those 14 up to 14 games, all that matters to the Heat in this season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%. And you look at Miami, we talked about this before the show. They have now taken over the 1 seed. Some struggles from the Indiana Pacers. Miami's a team that the only thing that could really knock off what I see for them is if Chris Bosh just completely goes by the wayside. But as long as he's even decent, he doesn't have to be great. As long as he's decent, and I think Wade, like you said, he'll be there when it's time. I know he's missing games here and there. I think he'll be there. Miami's just too much. I agree. I think San Antonio, that would be the West matchup that would give them the most trouble. If the Thunder made it out, I think Miami would take them. If somehow the Clippers made it out, I think Miami would take them. But San Antonio still would favor Miami, no question. But you look at the Spurs offensively and how they guard LeBron James and different things, they would give themselves a chance.
I have to give our good friend Chris Bosh a little credit. Now, me and our friend of the show, Garrett Hill, Coach Garrett Hill at Pottsville, we like to give Chris Bosh some trouble sometimes because, man, he's very talented, but he turns into a jump shooter a lot of times. And, I've heard Garrett yell at the TV more than once, man, you're worthless. You're just worthless. But I was looking at some stats, and Chris Bosh in that top of the key type area from the left and the right, a little bit of the free throw line extended, he is the most accurate shooter in the league with the minimum amount of attempts. He is the best field goal percentage from those areas in the league. He's turned himself into a jump shooter that's able to be that. I mean, what else was he going to do?
Jump shooter.
He wasn't going to dominate the. Well, I mean, Kevin Durant is that. I mean, I know
he
slashes. Really? I know he gets where he wants to go. Yeah. But Chris Bosh can't dominate the ball. He has to pick and pop, and he has to pick his spots. So I have to give him some credit because he was an All-NBA, possibly even a Hall of Famer at some point, and here he is playing third fiddle to. I know he's making $19 million and crying all the way to the bank, but he's playing third fiddle to these two guys, and I have to give him some credit for it.
But here's how I feel about Bosh. I feel like Bosh, is he a nice player? Yeah, he's nice, but I felt like sometimes we can identify a guy as a star who's really more of a scavenger. And the more I watch him in Miami, I felt like his Toronto days were more scavenger than star. We thought, star with Miami, Dwayne Wade and LeBron. Yeah, he was the best player on Toronto, but every team has to have a best player. The Philadelphia 76ers right now, somebody has to lead them in scoring. And I'm not saying Chris Bosh was just an all-out scavenger 100%, but I look back on it, Toronto got the 6th seed one year. Yeah, he led them in scoring. Does that really make you a star? I feel like we've seen his true colors. That's why I don't get mad at him anymore. I feel like he is what he is. He's a good player. He's not the player we thought he was in Toronto. That's my Chris Bosh philosophy.
I like it. One more thing and we're going to go a couple minutes over today. Just prepare yourself or turn it off, one of the two. Miami looks like they're going to get the 1 seed. I say that. They've got the inside track right now, number 1 in the East. is that a big deal? We both kind of agreed that it was because Indiana, and I won't steal your point, but they wanted it. In Miami, they sort of, we'll play Dwayne Wade tonight, maybe not. We may not play Chris Bosh tonight. We don't still know what we've got from Beasley and from Oden, but we're the 1 seed? What? How did this happen?
Yeah, we'll take it.
And as I was talking about pre-show, if Miami is to win the NBA championship, going and playing 4 games at home rather than having to play at Indiana or at San Antonio or where, which they're not going to be the one overall anyway, but let's go to the Eastern Conference. If they're playing 4 games at home rather than at Indiana, they win all 4 games at home, they win the series. Or if they lose 1 at home, they can win 1 on the road. But if you have to play 4 games at Indiana, you have to win 2 games. If you lose, you have to win 2 games at Indiana if you lose 1 at home.
Right.
So it's very, very important for Miami to not have to put that extra stress and strain on themselves, because we saw it last year. They got in such a tough series with Indiana that they go to the finals and they should have gotten beat.
Yeah.
Game 6, Ray Allen bailed them out and they win Game 7, but I don't think Miami wants to put themselves in that position, whether they say it or not.
No, and look, I certainly believe that Miami wants home floor. I think with Miami having home floor, let me just say it this way, it'll be better. If Indiana has home court, I think it's a series that I will be very interested in tuning in for 7 games. If Indiana has home floor. If Miami has home floor, I'll still watch, but I am really confident Miami's winning that series. So for me, Indiana's, if they get home court, it's about making it interesting for me, whereas because I think they absolutely have to have home court. I think Miami wants home court. You could say they even need it, but I think they can go into Indianapolis and win Game 7. I do not think the Pacers have a snowball's chance in you-know-where of winning Game 7 in Miami. So I think Miami wants it. I think it's more of a slam the door on Indiana more so than uplifting themselves, because I think that's what they can do now.
And the point you made pre-show, I think, sticks out to me, that Indiana's done all this woofing about how we want the number 1.
Yeah.
We want to prove to Miami that we want the home court. And if they don't get it after they put that effort out there and they say it, that's just a shot in the face to them, and I don't know that they could overcome that. Of course, then they'd have to overcome Miami in 7 games, and that's just beating them 4 out of 7 times is not going to be easy. So I'm looking forward to that. It's just less than 10 games left in the NBA season before we get to the playoffs. So one final thing before we leave today. I know we're a little over time, but today is the 20th anniversary. Arkansas Duke in the national championship game in 1994. I've got bittersweet memories of that. I've told you all the story about how my mom made me go to bed at halftime.
Right.
Okay, I was a kid. All right, I was 8 years old. So I still haven't forgiven her for that, and I still have the VHS. And I got to hear it. She was even more cruel than that, because she came in the next morning and was telling me Arkansas lost, and I cried because I was 8 years old. And I was pretty hacked off that A, she made me go to bed, and B, they lost. And I thought that I could have helped them win. So I have those memories. But then on the flip side, Weldon, I'm a little annoyed at the fact that that's all we have as Razorback fans. Oh, let's look back 20 years ago to when our basketball program was any good. I'd like for some new memories to maybe go back and, oh man, that was awesome back then. Because you don't look at let's think of you don't look at Duke and think, oh man, remember those Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley days? Well, we've won championships since then, and we've been relevant since then. We don't have to just hang our hats on one shot or one season. That's just frustrating to me that Arkansas has been that bad for 20 years to not have anything else to look at. Now, I know it was a positive, and they won the national championship, but I'd like for some new memories to come in and sort of and make me a little happier.
I would too. And like when they do those SEC games where nobody cares about, as soon as if Arkansas they have like a 10-point lead or something, the announcers get bored. What's the first thing they start saying? You think about this building, 15, 20 years ago with Nolan Richardson and Corliss Williamson, and that's what they're trying to get back here. They go to that every time they do a game in Bud Walton. It's bittersweet for me because I'm going to enjoy this year, because my most painful 20-year anniversary will be next year.
Yeah,
from 95 when I absolutely flat out lost it when we lost to UCLA. But in the end, I think it's great that we celebrate. I think it's great to keep it in mind, and I think that Arkansas, hopefully in the near future, will make some memories. Do want to give these quick points: baseball doubleheader today against South Carolina. Yesterday rained out. Yeah, number 1 South Carolina. I think Beeks now is on regular rest. Now he can start. He would not have started yesterday. And I want to say this real quick on the Cal job. Mike Montgomery did retire. Ben Howland, I didn't like him for the Marquette job. I like him for this job. He's a West Coast guy. I hope he gets the Cal job.
Well, coaching news. Weldon's all over the coaching news.
That's all I do.
Oh, Lordy. All right, well, we've covered a whole lot of stuff, and hopefully on Monday we're able to cover Florida, Kentucky, all SEC national championship game, or at least one of those two teams in it, because if not, it's going to be the most boring national championship game in history. That's all the time, plus some, that we've got for today. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long. We'll see you Monday at 11 o'clock with more Sports Blitz.